Chapter 37, A Boon to the Writers. Sam McClure could spot talent. Ida Tarbell was an outstanding writer. McClure suggested she write a book about Napoleon. When she did, McClure's ran a chapter each week. It was an inspired idea. People couldn't wait to read her chapters. McClure sold a lot of magazines. Next, Tarbell wrote A Life of Abraham Lincoln. Again, McClure's ran chapters in each issue. And again, people couldn't wait to get their copies of the magazine. McClure's circulation jumped from 120,000 to 250,000. Then Ida Tarbell began looking at the world around her. She felt that the standards of her day were not the standards of her hero, Abraham Lincoln. Many people, whether big business leaders, union leaders, political leaders, or ordinary citizens, seemed not to care about laws or even about right or wrong. Money and power were their only goals. A thing won by breaking the rules of the game is not worth the winning, she wrote. McClure, most people now called him SS, encouraged her to write a book about America's most powerful citizen, John D. Rockefeller, and his giant trust, Standard Oil. McClure did not expect an expose of a ruthless business practices, but that is what he got. Tarbell spent 4 years writing 2 books that shocked the American people. She showed how Standard Oil took unfair advantage of its competitors. She showed how its uncontrolled power had spread into railroads, mining, and banking, and how that power affected the lives of most Americans. Tarbell was always proud that nothing she wrote was ever proved wrong. 3 years after her books were published, the Supreme Court dissolved the trust of the Standard Oil Company. Ida Tarbell wasn't the only writer whom S.S. McClure encouraged. He had a knack for finding good writers. I had to invent a new method of magazine journalism, he said. The method was to pay writers well and let them do careful, lengthy research. One of them, Ray Standard Baker, wrote, "What a boon to the writer to be able to take his time, saturate himself with his subject, assure accuracy by studying the subject at first hand and consulting every possible expert." Lincoln Steffens, another of McClure's writers, decided to investigate America's growing cities. He wanted to compare the theories of ethics, how people should behave, with the actual conduct of men in business, politics, and the professions. He did that in an article that became a book called The Shame of the Cities. Steffens went to St. Louis, Minneapolis, and Philadelphia and found corruption. Then he studied New York and found it the best governed city in America. Remember New York's Boss Tweed and his Tammany Hall gang of crooks? New Yorkers had booted them out and now had good government and schools. Most people assumed it was the poor who were the criminals in the city. Steffens showed that the crime and graft were also found in the world of the middle class and rich. Jack London, Booth Tarkington, Rudyard Kipling, Stephen Crane, Hamill Garland, and Willa Cather were others of McClure's writers. If you have not heard those names, you will. They are all exceptional writers. Because McClure's was so successful, other magazines began doing the same thing, hiring good writers and paying them well. Most of those magazines sold for 10 cents. It was a fine time for America's readers.